This podcast is brought to you by CMX CVS Media Exchange, celebrating 5 years of real shopper insights driving real brand wins. For 5 years, CMX has built personalized one-to-one interactions between brands and over 90 million addressable extra care members based on real customer behavior. With CMX, performance isn't just about impressions, it's about impact, ensuring that every campaign delivers on brand goals. Unlock your brand's next opportunity at cvsmediaexchange.com. CMX. It's not guessing, it's data.
When the LA Olympics kick off in the summer of 2028, viewers will be seeing a lot more Honda. The company, in a deal announced this summer, is replacing Toyota as the automotive sponsor of the games. But how does the brand get its money's worth from such an expensive deal? Today's guest tackles that question and a lot more. Ed Beadle joined Honda in 2012, starting out as a national media manager. Today, he is VP of Digital Services and Marketing. And on the podcast, Ed discusses how he uses his media expertise in his current role, as well as how Honda is thinking about AI and a lot more. Plus, he describes how being a longtime Dungeons & Dragons dungeon master has actually helped him become a better marketer. My name is EJ Schultz, news editor of Ad Age, and this is the Marketer's Brief Podcast. Hi, Ed. Welcome to the Marketer's Brief Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with some big news Honda made earlier this summer. You guys have decided to sponsor the LA28 Olympics. I know decisions like these are not made lightly. So I wanted to hear from you why you guys think this is a good bet and how you're going to make your money worth it here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been, oh gosh, it feels like it's been a long time of tightening the marketing belt across the board for all auto advertisers and advertisers in general. And it's earlier in the year, I was talking with my boss, and he said, as much as we appreciate you always driving efficiencies, don't forget to dream big and look at opportunities. So we took it to heart. We'd gotten a notice about the Olympics and it coming up, and the fact that it's in Los Angeles is a pretty big deal for us. It's our home turf. And if Honda dedicates so many resources to where they are, wherever Honda is, we have a history of investing in Los Angeles. We've been a huge part of the Rose Parade. We have the Honda Center. It is our home turf. So from that alone, we needed to look at it. And when we went down there, there was this great feeling overall. And there's this quote from Jesse Owens, which is basically talking about dreams without action. You have to put the work in behind it. And it was almost a verbatim from Mr. Honda. And so it was a good omen. And as we looked at the map, they have one of those massive city maps where it has all the different points where the events were going to be. You could just visualize, I wrote a little bit about it, about the Honda Marine picking up a surfer, or Moto Compactos being that last mile transportation between events. So it aligned beyond just an auto play. We looked at it like, this is perfect. So you've covered rugged and the use of the overall red Honda versus just auto. So it plays into that perfect. So in this world where there's so much parity, one of the great uniqueness of Honda is its breadth of product. So from that overall just canvas that was available, we were pretty fired up about it.
I know we're still like more than 2 years away from this, but I'm sure you've already got some plans in place. Anything you can tell us on how your sponsorship might be different from the previous auto sponsor, which was Toyota, or any other sponsor? Are you planning anything real innovative you want to tease?
Yeah, throughout the Honda Center, which is going to be breaking news, we're actually going to be able to retain that name. The first time in the Olympics histories where a venue kept its branding. And for us, that's a huge win. You talked about like how you value a sponsorship, and the easy part's the media. So that has a clear math to it. There's comparable ad units, there's history, and you can score it. So what you're really trying to do as a marketer is close that value on sponsorship. the Olympics is a emotional hook, but how do you really measure that? So when you think about elements like branding of a actual venue, that's that much more incremental value, exposure on the broadcast, exposures, and it's volleyball, which I don't know if you can think of a more California sport than that. And it runs the whole 2 full weeks. So I think that's one exciting breaking news that no one's talked about yet.
Back up just a quick second,
Yeah,
explain to our listeners exactly what that is. So traditionally in the Olympics, even though you have the naming rights to that Honda Center in Anaheim, that would not have been sort of publicized during TV coverage. And would that signage have actually been covered so that
that's right.
viewers would not even see it? And that's for the first time, I believe, the Olympics committees are now allowing you to actually have that name appear. Are you paying extra for that? Was that part of your original deal, or how did this come to be?
Just part of the overall deal. We approached it differently. We kept it from being just auto and by looking at all of our assets. And I think that was very appealing to LA28 because when you think about sustainability and all of our different efforts in that area, the variety of products that we can leverage for the event, I think it was very exciting. So when it comes to the Honda Center, that was just overall part of the deal and it was part of the appeal to us for sure. That 2 weeks of incremental exposure helps kind of close that gap. So we're excited about it for sure.
You talked about measurement. Want to go back in time, your own career journey. I think you came to Honda in 2012. I think your original role was national media manager. You previously were at Omnicom Media Group, so you must be well versed in media, which of course is changing on a daily basis. But talk to me how that background has informed the way you kind of manage marketing and oversee marketing at Honda. Obviously, you see a lot, oversee a lot more of the media these days, but how are you using that skill still today?
Yeah, I loved it. I was actually an economics major and I started out in investment banking. So I had a real kind of practical side of me, but I'm also a hopeless dreamer. And so the world of advertising is kind of that blend of dreaming and math. What I love about media as being a marketing executive is its trade-offs, is what's the return on investment. And I think from an early stage in my career, when you do a point of view, it's always like, first of all, what's the return on the investment? And then benchmark it against alternatives. How else could you invest that money and what would be the return? So from that, for a Honda, which is, an interesting place where you rotate a lot. I didn't come here and just stay the media manager. I moved from websites to branding to regional marketing to different areas across the business. And I think that ability to think about trade-offs has been really helpful in my career.
As we sit here in 2025, what are the trade-offs you're having to make these days?
Oh, I mean, it's really focusing, last few years have been focusing on overall efficiency. So I always want to maximize my customer facing spend. I want to get as much media value out there. So how do I squeeze production dollars? How do I squeeze agency fees and make it basically put money out there that works for us? And it's interesting. I feel like we've been in that process since the Lehman shock across everywhere you've been. It's just that constant squeeze. But I enjoy it. I jokingly said I love a budget cut because it puts you in that position of having to make choices and shed the dead weight.
So some of our agency listeners might be cringing when they hear you talking about squeezing agency fees. Do you want to address that a little more? How you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think the model has changed significantly, and our agency partners are great. I love them,
You
but
guys
it's a
use RPA as your main creative, right? Mm.
That's right, RPA and Mullen and then we have VML for our websites and Orsi, which is multicultural, and those are the main ones. We also have two big additional regional agencies. We use Horizon
Mhm.
and Omni. I appreciate them all, but when you think about the creative palette, we live in a TikTok world now,
Mhm.
and so having the multi-million dollar production ad that's a disposable asset isn't the focus anymore. You want to have a lot of creative, you want to have a lot of flexibility, and you want to minimize production expenses. So, from that perspective, it's modernizing the agency platforms to really meet a client's needs today.
Do you still feel though, I feel like you're in a category automotive, you're still working with, hundreds of dealers across the US, oftentimes family-run dealers, people that are been in the business for decades, and they still expect a big TV campaign, don't they? And how do you deal with that tension?
I mean, it's a pretty big spectrum. I would say a lot of our best dealers are pushing us to be more digital
Hmm.
and push us in that direction. I think at this point, we've passed that tipping point. It happened I think probably during COVID is when the tipping point finally snapped and really our whole network went very digital. Because you think about it now, like in terms of regional marketing, the best is the connection to national marketing. You want to maximize your dollars. So if you can know digitally where they're going, you can basically cover more area and have less inefficiency. So I think it's shifted significantly.
And you can't talk about efficiencies these days without mentioning AI, right? Especially when
Yeah.
I heard you talk about production. I think that's kind of the first place where a lot of brands are seeing some efficiencies. To what degree is Honda using AI in your process right now?
Pretty aggressively, and we're in experimental phase, so we're trying lots of things. I think, the era of governance and set way is a little bit ways off, but we've used it. A big one we did was with Acura. We added it as a basically a chat bot for the agents themselves in the call center, and the results were out of this world. So it reduced their call times from 15 to 2 minutes. So we look at it as an aid to humans versus a replacement. I think you have to have some common sense because there's still, even like in a contained source, so you want your product information that's accurate, easily acceptable. So providing that to the call center agents, they loved it. So their review and score was amazing, and it shortened the call teams. Accuracy was higher than without it. So we
Mhm.
actually improved accuracy of client responses. So that's one place we've tested it that was incredible. And we're trying to get ahead of it because for us, the important piece is accuracy. So if say you're working on the sales floor, you could use ChatGPT and you could get an answer fast for a customer, but would it be hallucination? Would it be accurate? So for us as a OEM, we want to make sure any associate on our team has accurate information so the customer gets the right answer to their question.
I'd imagine that involves feeding it with just your own internal data for the most part, just to eliminate that chance of error. Is that accurate?
That's right. So that's what you have to have a contained data that has no open source. So if you think about it like sales training or for the website of the future, it's incredible. When you think about, I liken it like AI is a transporter where a website is like a subway map. It's a series of clicks to get to somewhere where the AI can get you exactly to where you want to go.
I also know when it comes to the creative itself, automakers like the ability to reduce shoot times because you can create from a base shoot, you can add in different weather elements, different backgrounds,
Yep.
things like that. Are you guys experimenting
Oh.
with that as well? And are you seeing efficiencies there?
Yeah, love it. I mean, that's one of the things we're talking about, the dealer advertising. There's always an appetite for regional plants, ocean by the ocean, mountains in the mountains. And I mean, we've been playing with that here since I've been here. I remember it's a fun part of the career when you go dealer facing for the first time and they don't hold back and you just get, a lot of heat. And that was one of the things I heard from the dealers was we really want regional marketing that looks like our cities. And so, starting with backplates, moving into AI, you can really put the car in whatever environment possible. And to your point, the speed is incredible. So whether you use it for concepting or for actual rendering, it cuts down, I don't want to throw out a crazy number, but it was like 1 to 7, I think was the ratio we're talking about. Just that much faster.
So before we continue, I do want to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by CMX CVS Media Exchange. CMX enables brands to engage with high intent shoppers across the full path to purchase, from digital inspiration to in aisle activation. With 2 billion on site impressions, nearly 2,000 digital screens in store, and the ability to reach shoppers through first to market collaborations with industry leading publishers and networks, CMX is leading the next chapter in retail media. Discover more at cvsmediaexchange.com. CMX. It's not guessing, it's data.
Okay, we're back with Ed Beadle, the Vice President of Digital Services and Marketing Division Business at the American Honda Motor Company. Ed, I cannot have an automotive marketer on these days without asking about the two biggest questions facing the automotive industry. Tariffs is one of them. So let's start there. How are you guys dealing with the tariff situation as we sit here today?
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, it really hasn't been a factor for us. So from an overall cost perspective, it hasn't impacted us all. We have some messaging regarding, made in the USA. Honda is actually in a really good position in terms of the overall percentage of American-made products. So I think we're in, I can't say amazing shape, but in relatively good shape.
The other big topic is EVs and how you handle the changing consumer attitudes on EVs. I think everyone acknowledges that it hasn't taken off as quickly as maybe automakers had hoped, when this first started pouring billions of dollars investment into EVs. As a marketer, how challenging has that been to kind of adapt your messaging around EVs?
It's a better marketing position, to be honest, because if you don't have to compete at volume, you can be more targeted, more set audience. From a brand position, we were relatively late, to be honest. And that's actually an advantage overall, but it was a gap in our product lineup. We were losing customers because we didn't have an EV. It was funny, even if you looked at Google search, people just assumed we had an EV. So we actually ranked as one of the higher brands with EVs before we had one. So I think the shift overall for us is I like it. I like being more targeted and being able to focus on that core customer and not having to be as mass with it. So I think for us, it doesn't impact us too much.
So we've got just a few minutes. I want to end with a couple biographical questions. When I was looking at your LinkedIn, two things stuck out to me. And I've looked at a lot of LinkedIn profiles for marketers in my time at Ad Age. I think you're the first one that I've seen is listed Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master as one of your experiences. Let's talk about that.
Did you play when you were a kid at all?
I did many years when I was probably in grade school. I have a vague memory and concept of Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm far from an expert.
Well, I played as a kid, and it was interesting. As an adult, it definitely kicked back up over COVID because when you're looking at ways to engage a group in activities, it was pretty amazing. We'd have basically my childhood friends and their kids, and I took them on amazing journeys. From a marketing perspective, I actually every once in a while will do a little bit of guest lecturing, and I bring that up because what I love about Dungeons and Dragons is it's storytelling. And you have to do a lot of preparation for that storytelling because it's a choose your own adventure. You can take the story any direction. So you may really want them to talk to a character you invented, but they go talk to the bartender instead. And so you have to have a backstory. Where are they from? What's their name? And that type of improvisation, I find is such a valuable tool as a marketer because you never get to do exactly what you want to because the conditions change. So you have to be creative enough to think of all the different possibilities.
So how many times are you playing a week these days, or where you, how often are you playing?
We go in streaks. We go in streaks. It's been a little bit, but it's hard. It's a lot harder to get the gang together as much, but at least a few times a year we'll do the campaigns, and it definitely brings joy.
The other thing you mentioned there was guest lecturing. Another thing that's stood out to me is you seem to be pretty active at universities with some teaching roles. I think at USC out there in California. It looks like you've lectured at University of Oklahoma. What's your specialty when it comes to talking to students? Why do you enjoy it? What do you learn from it?
First of all, like I love the energy that youth brings. I love the questions. You're on the spot, you're totally exposed, and I enjoy that type of interaction of just being challenged and engaging. And I come out of there with as much as they've given me as I think I give them. But I just have a soft spot for people. I enjoy that type of interaction. And I also love like you can be really unfiltered as a teacher in terms of topics. I'm not necessarily Ed Beadle, the Honda associate when I'm there. I'm just Ed Beadle sharing experiences, hopefully helping them choose paths to what gives them the most benefit in their lives.
So what are you usually lecturing about?
The first lecture I do is I talk about the Honda brand story, make sure everyone's familiar with Honda and what makes Honda different. I use the case study of Rugged just because it was such a clear business case study where you had a gap in the marketplace and perception. You had to close that gap in order to basically increase your reputation and sell more products. And so from a business case, that's always interesting because a lot of the students are either MBAs or getting a master's in marketing. And so it's a good practical where you have actual metrics, targets, and then business results.
When you say rugged, just for those who are unaware, that we're talking about the pivot to using John Cena as the voiceover, and
That's right.
you moved from, well, I'll let you describe what the shift is just quickly before we have to go.
Yeah, I mean Honda has amazing trucks and SUVs, but overall as a brand, when you look at Accord and Civic, those were by far dominant in terms of our 90s and early 2000s, our image. And so for us, the opportunity to capture more customers in a rugged portfolio. So we had to pivot the brand in that direction. And it's been fun. And from that, leveraging the entire brand portfolio. And that's how come we made the shift more to a I call it red Honda, which is the corporate Honda versus just autos. Because when you think about motorcycles, power equipment, and all the different marine engines, we have great credibility in that rugged area that we weren't getting credit for. So,
All right, Ed, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today.
it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was Ed Beadle, Vice President of Digital Services and Marketing at American Honda Company. My name is EJ Schultz, News Editor to Ad Age. I want to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite everyone to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite channel. We will catch you next time.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.